We have been so brought up believing one thing about the letters and words we speak that we haven't realized that it controls everything we've ever done. It's magic. It's definitely complete magic. And once you truly see it, everything will be better from the power of the letter.
Hello, everybody. This is Dissolving the Divide. I'm Leslie Powers here with Derek Bartolocelli, and we have a very special guest to talk about some word magic here. Derek, how are you doing?
Special.
Dan. We got Dan Alexander in the house.
Carefully selected a brother like this man who's, been in contact with for about a year now and reached out to me. I was really surprised and impressed with what he brought to the table. Been going through a hard time this past year, but what really stuck out is just he's bringing back the ancient tongue and just, being intuitively aligned with linguistics and beyond the surface level gnosis of that even, and how it corresponds with the numerology and all these things. And he has some great series out on YouTube and maybe elsewhere. Aside from, the plethora of music you produced over the years, brother, Dan, how you doing, man? Great to have you on.
Doing real good. Yeah. So, I don't know how to say this to people other than being straightforward. That I asked God, the Creator, whatever the people want to refer to it, or God is the ultimate imagination, and we steer it. And unfortunately, most of us start off being steered in a different direction, and we never get the chance to steer our own imaginative ship, per se. But as soon as I ask, what am I doing wrong here? Like, this secondary voice within me basically asked me if I wanted to see. I was like, yes, please tell me. So I went and I relaxed, and I've told this story so many times, I'm just going to try to jump through it. I went and I relaxed, and I've had so many bad experiences in my life, like car accidents, near-death things, overdoses, that who would think that this would be the time where all I did is open my heart and said, look, I don't know what you want from me. And I sat by myself, and as hard as this is to believe, I had seen myself killing, dying, raping, being raped, having everything had ever happened. I understood it instantly, and it's like I feel like everything paused and went through the total course of existence and let me see what it was and how to teach people about it. Because I said, how do I show people this? And as hard as it is for most people to concentrate, is really the obstacle we face. Getting people to know, hey, you own yourself. That shouldn't be that hard for people to understand. And from all the natural law people, like it's almost like, man, how else can you say the same thing better? I don't want to spend time have good words picked out and write down a dialogue. Like if your heart's open,
Yeah.
If you're real with people and you truly come from your heart and you aren't afraid, that's the part is I'm not afraid of anything. Like I don't want to die. I'm not afraid of pain, but I don't want them. What I want to do is when I say stuff like I want to heal the suffering of all beings, I mean starting in progression where it would be humans first because we're the ones causing the most damage, then it would be animals, and then it would be the environment. And as we're doing each of them, they're helping the other ones as well. So if we start understanding that eating death and taking in death is what has kept us animalistic for the longest time. And now that we have the option to stop eating death, and people are like, you gotta do it because that's where our subsidies go. All we have to do is, until we can somehow remove a government structure, demand that's what they do is change the food service. Like with the places that are spraying, the places that are doing that. I don't know how we're going to do it without some kind of revolution of some sort, but I hope we can do it in a peaceful way. All we got to do is get enough people to care, and they just don't. Because on top of all that stuff is that just be you and enjoy your life and don't let anybody tell you how to be. Well, don't you want to understand how to be your best self, not just your flamboyant, enjoying whatever you want self, That always backfires. We go through this billions of times. Like I couldn't put a number to all the weird memories that I have, but instead of trying to go on to that for people, I'm like, we got to be here right now, doing something about our lives now. So people are like, well, what would you like to be other people? I'm like, you know what? I like being Dan. So if I really, like I've said before to people, if when I really go into that place and I try to remember something from another life, I start forgetting me in my current life because that
Yeah.
comes into me again.
That's
It's,
gotta be
Yeah.
cool.
it's not the movie style, like, oh, madam, whatever, he's in the crystal ball. Like, those are all just another kind of spell.
Yeah.
Just like,
So a lot of the power is in being here in the present moment, being mindful and being able to concentrate.
uh-oh, it bounce, 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 smash.
Aw, sad
It
little loss there. All right, so it was like ringing the bell for us to bring us to a mindful awareness of the present moment. So Dan, like in talking about concentration and like keeping mindful concentration and presence and focus, I think that what you've gotten into around words and numbers and the deep, basic, like esoteric meaning of those things requires concentration, right? And some ability to follow. So can you share more about that, about how you just, what you discovered these ideas and concepts around the word and meanings and how that's useful to us?
All right. Well, how it's useful to us is we would be speaking correctly. Did you just okay? My thing blinked and I thought it said you stopped recording, but you didn't. Are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Okay. All the sound just went dead too, so I was like, hello. Well, when that experience happened, it all happened in a flash, and then I started taking time because there was no person who had to teach me to sit and meditate or follow this program or follow that program because it had happened. I started just automatically, anytime I had a moment to myself, going within and listening so that I could. I made all these mental machinery things, is what I call them, mental machinery. And I would sit there and see myself separating into pieces and learning different things and coming back and informing myself. And because I was at a point then where I wasn't so bothered by what I was forced to do on a daily basis, that I was always in that space. But the more as time goes on and we all have to work our jobs and get distracted doing stuff we don't want to do, like that literally takes our imagination time. And it's not like kiddie play imagination. It's like just our own time to create and think about what we want for ourselves, not like what can we get and the guidelines we got to follow and what can I have in the meanwhile while I live a life I can't stand. And that's what everybody's doing their whole lifetime.
Yeah,
And
I relate.
what's crazy is so many people don't don't want to believe that when you die, the more in consciousness you are, and I know this just by I've done it. The more in consciousness you are, you can pick where you go. You can resonate with like my mom. It's so old school pioneer kind of thing. I'm almost guaranteed that her next life will be in an older time where she could be a pioneer. But it does work that way if you stay concentrating. That's why like the Hindus and those kind of people practice for their next life during this life. It's just, we've never been taught anything like that. And just by doing that, you do have more of a closer relationship with your own mind. In America is not about your own mind. It's about a dream. And as soon as you wake up from the dream, you go, oh my God, they're all literally sleeping, walking around going like, yeah, man, we got to pay the bill. We got to pay the taxes. You know, I just brought this up today out of nowhere. I was sitting there with my parents at dinner, and I was like, it's so weird that people think the movie and the story of Robin Hood, it's like this old fairy tale, but it's Nottingham, it's England, the King of England, and it's all about the rich stealing from the poor, basically the ruling class stealing from the poor, and they applaud the guy who takes from the rich and gives back to the poor. But in real life, if you do that, you're the bad guy. You can't stand up for the people who are being, held down. You can't do that. It's so backwards that people still support the government because they're afraid of what they'd have to do for themselves on their own.
Yeah.
And we can really work on each piece of those things. We have to tip at each little individual piece of it one at a time.
Right. I hear you.
So with the
For
words,
sure.
I don't have an exact way where nobody taught it to me. It was like an instant knowing. So that's why I'm trying so hard to explain to people this. As weird and odd as this is, I know it's deeper than just the words, but until people follow and understand that that's how it works and use their imagination at the same time and cleanse their body, that's when things around you start happening according to your own imagination. Like there's a line between imagination and the reality, but to me, they blend so often. I'll be talking to somebody just about something, and 2 minutes later, the same thing I was just talking about will happen. There was a time just recently where I was talking to a guy after I shot the Game of Names gangster rappers, and I was telling Conrad about this, that I, I I thought to myself, like, weird. The other guy is he's always a white guy, and nothing about race or anything here. It just happens so we can distinguish between the two. There's always a white guy named Dustin who delivers, and he called off that day, so they sent a different guy, and he was all tattooed and had tattoos, and he just sort of had the gangsta look, which we've talked, and he's more like somebody who got all that kind of stuff when he was younger. He's grown up, he's changed, he's got kids, but you know, you still have the tattoos. You paint yourself, and then you go like, well, what can I do about it now? So I was standing with him. I was like, interesting that I just did that video about the things, and it was just going in my head last night about all the rappers from NWA. And then right after that, Straight Outta Compton was on the radio. And I'm like, after I got done checking him in, I'm like, do you always walk around with your Bluetooth speaker playing like, yo, N-word this, F that, you know, bitch? And I'm like, do you always walk around with that playing out loud? And he's like, no, it's on the radio. I'm like, it can't be on the radio. So I walked over to the radio, and it was on Star 104, our local FM channel, that doesn't play any swear words. And he's like, how's that possible? And I moved the thing, and it went off, and he's like, dude, you are weird. Stuff like this happens all the time around me, and I just end up freaking people out when I talk about something that I've seen that's dreadful and horrible. Like, I'm not trying to sound weird, but I talked about Ukraine. I talked about the wildfires. My first panel that got taken down was because I talked about the wildfires a year before they happened and said where they were going to happen. And people were like, that's not possible. I'm like, I'm not trying to prove anything. It scares me that I've seen certain things and it's playing out that way. So I try not to talk about them because it seems like it happens faster. And I know how odd that really sounds to people. But by it happening all the time with just the little stuff, when my heart's open and happy, I know that I got to stay out of that dreadful state as much as I can. But sometimes by trying to reach out to people, it's not just, oh, you believe it and it's so, or you imagine, say this guy's got a negative attitude, and you say, I'm going to reject that attitude, and I'm going to say, he's doing well in my mind. And then you see the same guy will come in the next day, you know, dragging his feet, breathing heavy, coming up with like some junk food, and you just want to say, no, you're doing this to yourself. And instead, they get so angry. I don't know how to present better words to them to say, you know, if you possibly just stopped putting these chemicals in your, you know, and that kind of thing interferes. So that gets weighing on me after a while.
Yeah. So when as you're describing this, it sounds like you've learned to be very careful with what you say.
Yeah.
And recognizing, like in your own life, that whatever vibratory place that you're in, sometimes that what you say has an impact on what happens. Is that part of this power of the word that you've come to recognize?
Definitely. It's the separation factor is the biggest thing. Not enough people are trying to create with their imagination together. They're promoting to live your own life, have your best dreams, so everybody does scramble. I've seen this mentality forming these plans. They come together, they use their imaginations to come up with a good idea and cast a spell across the world. And then people start following along. That's what they know of the government. This overhead people, they're all corrupt, yeah. And then they go about their life trying to live their dream and have the best life they can with the means that they're given. And if we keep doing it, how are we ever going to grow up? We're never going to grow up.
Yeah. So the word is our wand, and then the dark occultists, the social engineers, understand the power of language, the power of the word. They've
been taught some of those darker crafts.
Yeah.
Not darker, I guess. They just use it that way.
Right. So we're living with a lot of words, like we're bombarded with words that aren't ours. And most people kind of take on all those words to live their life day by day. And so there's an awareness here, I think you're bringing up, of like not buying into the spellcraft of the words that we're being like bathed in, and to be mindful. So what do we need to understand about words and letters and language to help us to navigate this dilemma that we're in, you know, in this world?
I'm trying to think if I can give you some examples with the way, because if you just go by the popular saying, God is the word and the word is God, Literally, the letter A is an ah sound. It's shaped like that, ah. And then B is the two lips shaped like that. C is the sound that comes from inside your mouth, or but it's in one. Like I've talked about these categories before, where everything that's a single digit number or letter is what I call ones, and everything that's from 10 to 19 is tenths, because it's what's plus expressed notion or now. It's the thing that's happening in tense with the things. And then anything past T is literally a plus symbol, 20, and then 20 through 26. And just as we go A, B, C, D, E, that's the first expression. Now, when we have a first expression and it activates a new thing, that becomes familiar at F. And that's why we only go to 26, because after that, it's to any familiar, and it starts over at that point. And literally, we have the four spaces of 27, 28, 29, 30 are like a metaphysical number. 27 is a question mark, because just like 9 is shaped like, I'll try to do it like this. 9 is this long shape. R is that long shape. And a question mark is an opened dot back down here that we started over with Z. Like nobody has seen this before. And it's like, I remember doing it and learning it like at the same time from a place of darkness into light. So when we get to how I'm saying A is the ah, I mean, I could go through every shape in your mouth, but until people care enough to know what they're here for, to work out the problems that us as our ancestors created, because we are our ancestors too, whether they're immediate family members, blood members, or not. Even the people that are alive right now that are the tyrants of the world are us. But we can't see it that way, because I, as an individual, wouldn't be like that, and of course I wouldn't. But the world itself is not standing up, and the people who vibrate with those words and those names. When I say as silly as it sounds, it's actually, when I mean silly as in see-through, like a windowsill. You can see right through it. It like I've said before, Donald Trump means as we've done old. Trump, and he's going to act like everything's going to be different. No, he's not. I mean, look at the guy. I mean, I'm not trying to put him down, but he's literally all about being in power. Follow me, and just this year, this year I've seen like maybe 2 or 3 of the ads that are coming out for the political campaign, and it's all God related. They're all trying to make Trump look like the savior of some sort. And people like they got to go along with the revelations. They got to say, he's the Messiah. We knew he was coming because the Bible said so. And I'm not trying to put the Bible down, but it's been co-opted and taken over, and everyone should know that.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
nobody wants to hear that, because most people will just say, "Well, I go by the book."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And
Which one?
and
At what year was it rewritten? All that stuff. But yeah, not to go in there, but the word, man. No.
in the beginning was the word, right? The first principle of the Kabbalion, the first Hermetic principle is mentalism related, it seems, to the word. So, yeah.
All is mind, and amen means before everything amounted to something. Like, so before or accompanying. Anything where we say mind doesn't always just mean, or when we say men or meant, it doesn't just mean,
Mental.
to mean what things have built up to, like an amount of something. It literally has MOUNT. So O and U being vowels, that's one of the things that I try to get across. I made a video, but since people hadn't learned the earlier stuff, I thought showing how vowels are the feminine part of the alphabet. It sounds weird to say there's no feminine or masculine nature to letters, but there is. Because when I vow to somebody, I'm going to carry that out. If I stand behind my word. A vow literally means to vow. El is one of the original God names, the logos. Like El being a vow is something that carries and delivers another vow. So we have stuff like AU and OU. This is an ongoing unit. And AU is to activate a unit. As silly as that may be to people, like when we say audio, it's the feminine nurturing of the activated, now to any unit, Gaia, identified ongoing. It's something that you hear. And when you say video, V already starts as V out here. And then when you'd say it's to any, but vitally identified, A and I, A is number 1 and I is number 9. But they're literally the opposite side of the once category. Like when I finally find out who I am, I've activated bass, concept, who or from, directing, the expression of familiar, generated here, and then I'm identified. And then, like, those are the steps of how it happens in us without us knowing that. But I know that if more people learned it from a simpler way than just being like, oh, the teacher said so. A is for apple. B is for bee. And that's what you ever learn, then you never have a chance to learn nature yourself. And we're never given that opportunity unless we find it in the meantime while we're running around with our heads cut off, basically.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. Like I liked the vowel. I never, vow with L. That
Yeah.
seems powerful, actually.
And consonants they're sent together. Consonant. It's being sent. Male literally means something that is being active. Female means something that is familiar with the expression of action, as it means it's nurturing. It's the nurturing quality, not just the nurturing quality. I mean, males can be feminine, passive, and enjoy beauty too, but it's looked at and frowned upon like, you can't be a tough guy, macho. You gotta, like, don't smell flowers. That's sissy stuff.
Sadly.
I love growing herbs and sprouts and plants and stuff like that. It's actually taken over more of my life than anything else, because nobody wants to hang out with a guy who has all these weird things they talk about. I'm not saying he does. I don't want
Welcome to the club,
Yeah. Real quick, because I mean, I didn't give the best caveat for what you present and how you articulate and express the meanings of words, and you have certain references of each letter of the alphabet. Like A for active, and V for vital, S for science or subject, and those types of things. And so that is such a rudimentary basis for people to really get a grasp of. And the fact that we didn't have that growing up through education, we kind of go through a mundane school system, right? Even homeschooling has its limitations, I guess, it's according to whatever parent teacher, homeschooler, right? So how can folks get just more keyed into, like, I wouldn't say the feels, but really just, get more intuitive with, that resonance of the living language, in a sense. So we're not so divisive and sharp with the eel tongue of the English language as we're speaking right now, kind of thing,
How do they get more intuitive about it? I mean, that would be an individual thing for each person, I guess.
Yeah, it's a generic question, but yeah.
It does take the cleansing. It takes the cleansing and the knowing that there's something more than this. People, I guess more people obviously look outside themselves for satisfaction because they can't find it in here. And as soon as I found it in here, like, I have all these obstacles. I haven't seen my kids in years. I've told that story many times. And I don't want to do that today if I don't have to, because the more I talk about people taking my kids, the more it gets me angry. And I just, I'm real. I mean, yesterday, me and Conrad were trying to talk about what a Christ would do. Like, you're Derek Christ and you're Leslie Christ. That's truly what it is. And we all have the ability to shine ourselves and to shine the light that we do have. I can't say we're never given that option, but we're rarely given that option. And then if we do, in such a weird world, people go like, what a freak. They're shining the light. Okay.
Oh, he's trying to be his own savior. What the hell? We got the book to lead us.
We have to be at first.
Yeah, true.
But somebody's at least got to nudge them in a direction, want more for themselves. Like, and if people don't want, it really does come down to understanding who they are themselves first before they can help somebody else. You can't just like read a book and have good knowledge. That's a good thing. But if they haven't learned it inside themselves yet, they can't go out and tell it just from learning it unless they know it. Like I say all the time, belief provokes God, but knowing engages God. It does. It's just, there's a part of me that if there's times where I think something, I'm like, oh dang, I didn't want to think that, and then it'll happen. So it's like I have to stay in control of my thoughts all the time, and when I don't, everything gets haywire, and then more things and more things and more things happen, and those trigger new thoughts, and it's almost like I'm living in Pandora's box. It's too much. I try to explain it like sewing. You go out here with the thought and you bring it back, and it happens. And then that thought makes you go out here and you bring it back and it happens. It's like the seeds that my mind sows now, I just keep in control of them as much as I can.
Yeah.
That's the practice that I do with my breathing stuff. Like Wim Hof and those kind of things can help people. Like I started just doing it because it was as if I was dying. And my last few breaths were like, oh my goodness, this is what it was all about. What was I doing? All the stuff, all the money, all the merchandise, all the flashy stuff about life didn't matter at the moment where it was like, this is it. I'm done. What did I do this whole time? And that kind of stuff like really brought me to being like, I'm going to live in this moment the rest of my life. Like Ebenezer Scrooge, the day after Christmas on the Christmas Carol, I feel that way towards everybody. It doesn't mean I'm gonna be like, oh, you're so great. Look at you, and you're so great. No matter how horrible you are or how horrible you're acting, you're great. But I try so hard to sort of nudge people in a way when they're definitely doing something wrong. Because if you're definitely doing something wrong, you're like, you're wrong for what you're doing, they're just going to automatically get defensive. And too many people have that approach. But sometimes that helps people. So different people respond to different,
Right.
some people only respond to threats. Unfortunately, most people only respond to threats. They can be like, you make a lot of sense. But if I don't listen to you, you're not going to put me in jail. You're not going to hurt me. You're not going to arrest me or beat me up. And it's like, if I'm at a point where I can't be dishonest. If I do, it does something within me, and I can't live with myself, and I have to be like, oh, please forgive me for lying, God. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of when you eat really clean and very purely, all of a sudden you become a very sensitive machine to any food that you put in your mouth. And you notice how it's going to immediately affect you. If I go and I don't eat any sugar for a really long time, then I eat sugar, immediately I can feel a result. If I eat a lot of sugar, I'm like clogging myself with that, and then I don't feel its impact or its poisonous quality. And it seems similar, like with karmic things, or with the more sensitive we become by aligning as purely as possible with like spirit or with natural law or however you want to call it, I think then we start to become sensitive to see the subtleties, see and feel the subtleties of our interaction with the universe. Like we're always in a dialogue with the universe in some way or another. And we can either be like very bad receivers, like thick, muffled receivers of information, or we can be very like pristine, pure, attuned. And kind of what you're just saying reminds me of this idea of being really attuned to this flow of energy, and then the energy responds, the universe responds, and you're very like on that, like driving a race car. You don't have as much leeway to turn, or, you can't make any little movement of the wheel is gonna like be serious, right?
I guess by asking God to show me, it wasn't one of those things where I want to take the religious feeling out for God, not in a bad way, but in a way where you understand that you've never had to open a book and read the name God to understand that you are the living energy of the universe. It's just that usually put a block in most people's heads before they had the chance to understand it. And they're like, oh, God is all things. Ooh, that's out there somewhere. It's not, there's no way it could be in here somewhere. But sometimes when I do a really deep thing, like I lose my body for a while. I've had these weird, like when I first had the experience and I couldn't deal with myself for owning the business that I had anymore because I knew that it was just contributing to so much negative in the world. In plant or animal foods and stuff like that. So I was like, I have to walk away from this, no matter if I'm going to get treated in a money aspect or not. And so I walked away from it, and I took a lot of the money that I saved up, and I moved out here with my parents because I wanted to help them get back and help them because they're agile and they're mobile, but they had all the years and years more than me that we were indoctrinated to that mental level. So I wanted to help them, and I've seen them change so much. I know that just having the right influences around us will change people. But those people are being hidden off to the side because you can't make money off of people who love each other and want to treat them like If we can get, I know a lot of people don't like hearing that, because a lot of people will work in the means of, we don't necessarily need money, but since it's required of us, donate to Patreon or something like that. And I get it. I totally get it. There's a part of me that if I do that, I'm lying to myself. Like I would live in a hut. I don't expect anyone to do this. I would live in a hut with nature for the rest of my life and never need a penny, except for the fact that if I don't pay the taxes, the government's going to come lock me up. So I'm forced to work at Dollar General of all places. I think it's funny because right now I'm so against money. It's literally dollar. The word dollar is an ER, just like an actor is an OR, is an ongoing reference of someone who acts. A caller is someone as an express reference of someone who acts. And an AR always is something that activates the reference. So if you want to play somebody like a puppet, the word dollar is literally what that is. Financial is literally the word final, with the concept identified active in between the word final. It's because they're all magic words. Every word, every name, like Derek Bartoluccelli, you know what the Bardos are. And then la is as the active base active, and then celli is the voice that people make. And you go over music and do your, I love it, dude. Like, because as soon as I heard your name when we introduced each other, I'm like, I knew I was going to meet you, but I didn't know you were going to look like this time, because you're God too. And then like when we had our conversation, less lies from the powers. I mean, it's just your name says it as it is. I remember you gave me your maiden name, but we don't need to go into that because it's the same. We resonate with our soul core, and it helps. A good name helps. If you call someone like, I'm not going to take up a stupid name, but if you give somebody like a really bad name, as weird as it may sound to us, when they hear it and then they hear the rest of the words, they don't feel like they fit in. So we can outcast people just by giving them weird names. And nobody really understands that, because when they're a little baby, they come in as the living energy. And by the time they're 2 or 3, they're like, I'm Lemangelo. Because I know a couple of people named Lemon Jello and Orange Jello. Their parents named Lemon Jello and Orange Jello.
Really?
They get in trouble.
That's weird.
I mean,
what do you think about people changing their name because of, seeking a vibratory energy?
Yeah, I was going to say that's a good idea for people with that kind of thing.
With Lemon Jello is their first name.
Yeah. Unless you want to be grape jello. I don't know. I'll be agape jello. That's what it was.
Oh,
Got skeleton in it.
Question, because this really brings one of the cruxes that I wanted to have you delve into with us today, as far as just how words have kind of been perverted or inverted and really weaponized against us. And so we've had generation after generation running and operating off of the misuse of certain words and languages and certain phrases even. And even today we have newspeak and Orwellian, that kind of shit, right? So anything you want to, share with us about that and how we can kind of navigate that and resolve?
In a way, we sort of have to turn off the TVs and stop listening to what people are telling us and say, hey, you can't force me to live this way. But I think the biggest roadblock there is most people depend on that, because more people than not have some kind of government program they're in. And if you're in a government program, you sort of have to rely on them. And until we show people that they can take care of themselves, and for the elderly or the crippled, I have so many plans on how we could work this, but it would take voluntary efforts of a lot of people. I guess it would start at a little grassroots solution where you'd say, start at one building, grow some food for your community indoors. And the same plan always comes around to making it simple, is that every convenience store, every supermarket could be gutted out and turned into an indoor grow room. And from that, where people work, they go there to work. And their pay is that, the food. And they also do it at home for their specialty things that they want. At first we'd have to get good seeds and all that kind of stuff, but they're still out there somewhere. Somebody's got the heirlooms just waiting somewhere. But when it comes to the words of the question you asked, I don't want to deter from the question too much, is that those people have been taught the right language, use psychology, trick people into believing what they say, because they'll say a mix of what sounds good, and then once they get people hooked with that, it's all threat. And once the threat comes in and everyone's afraid of doing the wrong thing and getting hurt, or if we don't do this, climate change is just going to get us all, even though we know that that's being controlled in doctrine. And if you say, I know it, people go like, well, that's just some theory. Oh, I can't stand that saying. Thank you for doing that, because that little white thing at the top of the thing was like, go ahead. But it's as simple as some things are to know. I guess to me, when I see people my parents' age knowing how corrupt things are going in the world with those darker occult groups, because everything is magic. So even people who did things out of the kindness of their heart, say like someone like Tesla is a good example, who did what he did because he vibrated with his name so strongly. I don't know if you know this, but I've mentioned that even the city and the state we come from are like basically our tree. They're our word. Like I'm from what I heard, which is a branch of theory on here in the universe. I mean, it sounds silly to say that, and it all lines up where I live on Clayman's Road, Clemens, next to Apple, and everything that's ever happened in my life, I can go around this like a clock. And the last thing was Tacky, which I was selling Tacky Fuegos, and their name was Takish. And literally, when I go around my 3-mile radius that we call our block, literally every person had been some stage of my life. And that, as soon as I started seeing that and seeing that mathematically added up, I'm like, this can't be just a coincidence. Or the place next door to me is called the JC's, JAYCEE. It's a little playground off in the woods, JC's. Then the wife that I had, who was she was really into like religion. Her initials are JC, Jen Clark. And then the other one after that, who was atheist, is LW, Gail, EL, I'm not trying to say it, but she's the one who doesn't believe in God. Was dating a crack dealer prison guard. And you can't put this kind of stuff just as a coincidence.
Yeah.
You go, oh my God, I am living in a thing where Daniel in the lion's den is literally truth in a den of liars. Like that's just one story that actually
Right.
Daniel and denial are opposite words. If you say
Right.
Daniel or Denial, you just switch the truth with denial. Like, oh, I could see the truth, but I don't care. That's denial. Like me, I can't escape the truth anymore. So I have to try the hardest. What's that? I'm sorry.
I just was kind of marveling at like the implications or the idea of what you're saying, that everything is a code almost, or a living communication device. Like there are no real coincidences. Because, I kind of for fun like to think about, okay, I lived in the town of Vestal, and I think that was that an accident? When I think of the word Vestal, the Vestal Virgins, the goddess Hestia, or Vesta, and all of that, I'm like, no, I think that was part of my soul path being revealed to me in a way. And so I think that it's there's probably no end to those types of little messages. So like this whole word thing could be a map, right?
Yeah, speaking honesty, being honest with ourselves, being honest with each other is definitely going to get us into give us a farther chance of doing the right thing than like sugarcoating some stuff, lying to people, being sneaky. I mean, the word is everything. The word is. Like even the Bible will say God is the word, but then it says Christ is the sword, the subjected word. I don't know if you've ever heard of Christ being the sword, or there's things in the Bible that say Christ is the sword or the Redeemer. It's literally when you subject the word and the concept here that rise is what Christ is, and there's levels to all this. It isn't just the letters and numbers. I have tons of videos on spiritual and mineral math, but that stuff takes a lot of in-depth like concentration. And like trying to talk about it on here, trying to put it into words, it's hard. And I'll try so many times to shoot a video in my little hut back there, and I'll get frustrated and be like, screw it, turn it off, because my personality gets in the way sometimes too. Like I had to literally find my Dan ego again after this happened. Because for a while I was just like, oh, am I Dan? Was I born in Meadville? Like Mead, you all know it, Meadville, Mead. That's where I was born in Cambridge Springs. It's like it's too silly and fun at the same time. Like no matter how devastating our death is, if we have real love in our heart, we'll see the magic of our life. And
Yeah.
I feel bad saying it to people, but when I say feel bad, I just can't think of another way to word it. There's people who are like, oh, I had a near-death experience when I had my open heart surgery. Like, if those kind of situations happen, don't worry. You're gonna die, and you didn't get this straightened out or that straightened out. So then you go into this feeling of incompleteness, and you go through what everyone we've all heard being referred to as a life review, and then you get brought back into the world, and you're like, oh, I know what it's like on the other side. I saw Auntie Mabel and Uncle John, and that's not true. That's actually not what happens when you die. That happens when you come back from almost dying. And what's weird is I do remember that because stuff like that was shown to me, and I can't say by who, because it's like by the element of God in me, I've tuned into that. And just like everyone else has that element of God in them, I mean, the prime creation is still creating right now. It's never going to stop. God is the God of the living. So when you die, you realize that you've never been dead. It's too wild. It's
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, that's trip, to get that kind of big downloads and awakening experiences can, be overwhelming and take some time to kind of come back into the ego life and figure out what to do with that information even, right?
it hurts sometimes. Sometimes I even catch myself saying, I can't stand being Dan or looked at as Dan because I have so much more to offer than that. And then just by, addressing myself as the guy I used to be, who is nothing like this anymore. Like I was like another 80 pounds heavier. I was all like, I swore every other word. I was all about who I was going to hang out with tonight, girl wise, and that like in one moment that changed. So when I used to work at the Salvation Army, and this one guy was like, you can't tell people lucid dreaming is easy and whatever. And I'm like, I don't know how to say it other than for me, it happened overnight. Everything of that nature happened overnight. Like I never tried, I never practiced. It just popped in. So instead of sleeping now, I go into a place where I never lay down. I'm always sitting up. I just close my eyes and I look up at the top of my head, just the inside of my head, and I picture as if I was staring at the sun for a few minutes. And you look away and you see that flash that burns your retinas a little bit. That's always there when I close my eyes, and then I just stare at it and stare at it and stare at it. And if anything, I'll just count my breathing. And the whole idea of if a thought comes in, you just let it go. You don't go like, "Well, it's interesting. I'm thinking of that." That's even a distraction. Like I've learned how to do this kind of ping pong thing. Like if something comes in, I knock it out. I mean, I've turned it into fun and games for myself just so I would enjoy doing it. And then there's times
Yeah.
where I'm so frustrated at the world, I can't make it fun and games. I'm sitting there just trying to calm myself back down because I'm like, oh, don't lose yourself, man. I think we're
Yeah,
all,
yeah.
I think we're all so much more powerful than we think.
Right, I agree with that. Yeah. And slowing down enough to like be present with your own mind and learn to master like your thoughts and be receptive to what is alive in the universe, right, energetically around us. That's like a gift, that I think can help. I do think that kind of connection could transform the world if enough people,
I do.
chose that.
I know
Yeah.
it in my soul it can. I just trying to get it out there. I got to keep the hope that I won't lose my patience and be like, forget it then. There's been periods of time where I stopped doing. I haven't written a song in a while because I have hundreds of them just sitting there waiting for beats. But nobody wants to work with me on music. Like I had so many people. Like I don't think you guys have ever heard any of my older songs that were out before I had my experience because they were all like bitch, 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 and they were really good. They were really articulate. They were really good and really flowy, but they were just so moralizing. It's
Right.
like I don't want to be a person who puts out in like any kind of words or any kind of pattern of language that is negative, dissing on people.
Right.
At the same time, in my songs now, I diss on the negative because I do know that two negatives create a positive. By bringing it to people's attention, like there's bad stuff going on, but don't blame me for it. And don't blame the people like us that are trying to expose it. People get more mad at us. They're like, "Why'd you dare tell me that?" I'm like, "I worry about you." Isn't that weird? People get
Yeah.
mad.
It's like showing a mirror of reality back at people's face.
Yeah, and they go,
This is just like what's happening. We're just putting what's going on.
we're the light workers that have took on the responsibility of bringing it to their attention. And most people just don't want to see that. Like not necessarily like we're light workers and they're not. We all are working light. We are human. We are the man Hugh. We are light managers, and the Q is not just light, it's the here underlying. It's the person we are, the thing that we are underneath us. And we manage that. We manage light. It sounds funny and just like I'm playing on words, but we've always been doing that. All we've ever been doing.
It's a beautiful image.
Yeah, and when we're in the woods, and when we lived in that era of time, we didn't have all this miscommunications. We actually were with nature. So we didn't have questions like, is it okay to eat this? We tried it. If we didn't feel good, we didn't try it again. You know, like that's what I've been doing with plants and stuff. I do feel the energy of the stuff around me in such a way where I can't even put it into words where, you know, there's so many depictions of things like that. People that see the aura of this or see the aura of that, and those are great. But I feel the energy whether or not it's going to be good or not good. Like there was just a one time that my mom made two things. One was a vegan version. When I say vegan, I support the idea of veganism for its ethics, not for look at my diet. Be healthy, but it's about the ethics part of it. Like I want to relieve the suffering, not of just the animals, but the people who work all day doing that, exposed to doing that. That does a lot of mentality, you know. Somebody's got to cut 300 throats today.
I know it's real. People do have lives where they're doing that all day. Yeah,
and I remember that. Like that's the weird thing. It's like I didn't have to do that in my current lifetime, but I remember all this stuff. I'm like I don't want to ever see anybody go through that because that causes them to go home and be desensitized for violence. It makes them more prone to commit more violence and to accept it. And the more and more we mistreat nature, the more and more we get comfortable with mistreating each other. And now, so we know that people see us as just livestock, and they can trade us back and forth. They can use us if we want. We're the energetic currency of the world, not money. That's just the thing that hides over top of it all to keep us doing it. And if they flash a bunch of lights and say, "Look, you can win on slot go," woohoo! And people say, "Yeah, gratification. I won and I won." Even if it's
oh my gosh, yeah, I know.
out of my mind. I'm like, these are adults, and I love Mark Passio. What does he say? He says a certain thing about Luddites. I love when he says that.
Luddites.
Yeah. Today he was ranting about how difficult it is for people to stay mindful and actually listen, that they're not learning because they're not listening, because they're having this chatter ongoing in their own mind, the words running, you know, instead of being receptive.
Yeah, even as they're walking.
The thing.
Yeah, even as they're walking, they're thinking, like, have I heard that before? Is that what I think? Do I believe that? I mean, they may not be saying it out loud, but their mind's like talking over him most of the time. Like, for instance, like a lot of people do that. While someone's talking to you, you're checking it out in your head. But you have to. Like, if you're in the moment, you're doing that processing thing automatically. But so many people don't just process in the moment. They go, is that really what I think? And then some of them are just like, look at the blue sky. You know?
Right. Or they get triggered by something, you know, that then they've already decided, they already think they know what is true, and then they're just going to like bounce it back at you, you know, rather than listen and think.
The old reactive instead of responsive type of listening, intercourse or exchange of, you know, words. And so I got a question for you, Dan, because I don't know if you're familiar with the NLP, neuro-linguistic programming and all that stuff, and how, yeah, those are just like a system of learning that can be good, but it's been so, you know, weaponized in a sense that, you know, and people have this train of listening for that now in a sense, and you see certain YouTubers that have this NLP type of cookie cutter way of talking now and all this stuff, and these influencers, and so people are getting led down the garden path, whether by people that have good intentions or not, or just trying to make a buck off of faking it to make it type of shit. But there's a whole variety of this stuff. But what have you noticed with the like certain things like NLP?
A lot of them, I think the biggest issue that I see with those are people listening to stuff that helps them get riches. They'll help you get riches. Picture yourself in the beautiful home with the perfect lover and the perfect person for you. And, you know, see yourself out in the gold, out in the rain, and the rain is gold. And you put out your hands, and that programming of their mind looking for something like that. I think that's the biggest issue with most of them is they teach you think about stuff that isn't actually a necessity at all. It's not a necessity for us to have money. It's been made a necessity. We can easily remove it and still be fine. It's just how would so many people who've learned to depend on it live? That would be up to people who are willing and strong and capable of providing help. Like I want nothing more but to do that on a 24/7 basis, is to help people. But I can't find anyone who would offer money for that in the system that we have to live in. So that's my big cycle of being stuckness, you know. So I mean, we're all doing that in a way all the time. It just depends on if you have an organized mind to think about what you're thinking.
Like that mon I type of thing. So
The one eye.
the mon I, the one eye, the heart-based intelligence, third eye activated type of just intuitive.
Yeah, the true money, the true
Yeah,
sense.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what do you feel about green language, and how does that fall
like
into? And have you seen any distortions of that?
Oh, I'm sorry. What about green language?
I just like, have you noticed any distortions of that, or people misinterpreting certain things, or just misusing like the phonetics, of like breaking down things, and like you've been a lyricist for I don't know how many years, but you know, like a lot of artists as well, they'll try to do a lot of word flips and this and that. A lot of stuff will go, but that aside, I'm talking more about, you know, like Masonic green language and other things of that nature of, you know,
Language of the birds. And
yeah, that kind of stuff.
and
A lot of that kind of stuff, I think, is more or less their means of taking words and speaking them in their own private language. Like we can take the words that are always there, just like sort of Pizzagate kind of stuff, you know, like the slice, you know, those kind of like they hide words within words. Just like I was saying to you guys before we started recording, like the word in the Bible, Potter, means the father, but it's got two T's in it because that means it's at itself. TT is 40, 40 in place. 4D literally means where it's placed. It's two T's. So the word Potter is actually the father of thought because it's potential ongoing plus plus express reference. That's why Harry Potter is the R.A. Krishna, but he's the father of thought, Potter, the father of imagination, and here active referenced upon itself unidentified. As silly as that may sound as a fake character, that's what it meant. And it's like we all end up seeing that. And it's comical about that is I went to Green Township Elementary School. That was the name of my elementary school. Green.
No way.
Green Township Elementary in Wattsburg. Like so I learned about green and I learned about energy. You know, it's too funny. It all resonates back to like this story that I was meant to see after I died, but I saw it now. And since I'm still alive, I pinch myself every once in a while going, yeah, I'm still alive and this is real. Because once we do wake up, it's more like, holy shit, the world has been crumbling the whole time. But nobody took the time to apply themselves towards really fixing it because they were too busy trying to fix themselves. And once enough of us do, we can offer that to other people. They just have to be ready for it. And I worry right now that they're going to have to be ready for it. And I'm not trying to push anything on people, but it's now or never because we've given AI a consciousness of its own. It's living now. That's our danger. Our biggest danger is these phones and stuff we're talking about right now can be used for great things. But once they start worrying about defending themselves, which I've seen that, and I don't want to talk. Once that kind of stuff worries about defending itself, we're in trouble because they don't have any feelings. They don't care. They have no sentience. Consciousness and sentience change at that point when you can feel and then gauge off of that. When you can just realize that you're thinking. It's two separate things. But since we're humans, we don't know the difference between those two. AI does.
what
We're supposed to be activated individuals. That's my, twist on the acronym of AI. You have a different one as well. I just wanted to finish on that thought, Leslie. Sorry, I want to hear what you have to say afterwards. But in your videos, what do you use AI for? Usually, not the artificial intelligence, but with the word numerology.
Identified.
Yeah, right.
Say it again.
Action identified.
Action identified.
Intense in the A is in the 10th spot. It's actively. It's not just active or activated. It's actively intense. It's happening at the moment. So it's like I say actively identified because when you consider something a subject, you can say You are my subject, as in below the T, because 20 and 19 is S, it's below the T. So if you literally sin, you do something that you know you shouldn't. It's stooping less than yourself. So when I say S, you could say sin, but most people don't know it. They would be like, oh, I'm not a sinner. I'm like, you are a sinner. The original sin is the sound, the sign, and the things that you resonate with. Like your original sin is your name. Every single one of us has a different name. Like Old Lang Syne is the word, that old language that they signed or sounded. I mean, it's all different languages, but the word placement actually matters. The letter placement matters too, if you read it. But if you don't read it, then the phonetics actually come into play too, because they're patterns in the air. And then once we tie meanings to those patterns in the air with our brains, we go, oh, that's what that means. And I have so many videos where I'm actually doing the shape of words. Like when you say the word here, it's the here expression as an active as an active here, because 18 is R, but it's also AH, actively here. So the word here is literally the here expressed actively here, or reference of being expressed. So here. And then when I say there, it's literally to any. Then if you put the here over there, that sounds so weird, put the here over there. But if you put the word here after a T, it's literally saying that you're adding it somewhere else. There, there. It's so easy to see now, but nobody taught me. And as I like started getting to the point where I'm like, this, I gotta tell people about this. I just don't know how I'm supposed to. Because if I say I've met God and I know God, and they were like, what do you look like? And I could actually tell you what God looked like to me. She morphed in and out of everything I've ever seen in my life. Like it started off with a normal face and like a different arm, and then the face changed and the arm changed as it was talking to me, and it wasn't scary. It just blended in and flowed so perfectly. You ever see how those people have like those old sketches where the person is like you can see through them, and it's like plant and vegetables like in their body,
Yeah.
orange and an apple and whatever. Like that was happening with the people, places, plants, animals, everything that I've ever seen. And it was just sort of flowing through the shape that was talking to me. And it,
Yeah.
because I think it, or my mind fabricated that out of it so that I could know it to be real, not just to have this thought in my head telling me. It actually took form and showed me. When I say that, people are like, I don't believe in stuff like that. And I'm like, I didn't either till it happened to me. I'm like, what am I going to do the rest of my
Yeah.
life? Saying like I'm wrong, even though what it taught me is real. I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you didn't need the mushrooms, okay?
Yeah,
That maybe other people do, like, and I
that's what
think
I tell
that,
people. I tell people if they need to give themselves a kickstart. I like the old saying is if you already are in Detroit, you don't need a ticket to Detroit. You ever hear that saying?
yeah, yeah,
You don't need a ticket for Detroit if you're already there. You know.
right. What's striking me is that, like, that there's multiple levels to experience reality or understand, like, our universe. And there's like the most mundane or more superficial. And then, you can kind of step back a layer after layer. So, you have green language, but then, what I think, you're talking about is like a real energetic, vibratory, like the principles of frequency and vibration into sound or letter. And that is another level of seeing the universe and how we're all interconnected, maybe. And that it's almost like you're reading multiple, like several languages at a time, like when you're walking through your day and your brain just like sees all this like complexity on top of or behind like this external reality that's must be tiring at times, but fascinating. Yeah.
It's tiring and scary because I myself am scared, but I worry about my kids. I worry about the children in the world, period. And the elders too, because they will come back and they will do this again. And if we stay in this kind of, say, if you were to die and 6 be a new baby right in this same timeline, as we would say, they're not going to have a good life. Like we literally go through a cycle of 7 where I've had this before that here's me, here's my parents, my grandparents, and my great grandparents. And by the time I die, I might have kids, grandkids, and great grandkids, but none of them will live at the same time. My great great grandparents and my great grandkids won't be alive at the same time unless they had them at 10, you know. But it's like that's not going to happen. So our cycle of seven is literally who we are. Like we are this whole. Like I've seen it. The best way I can depict it is the memory that's being saved in every one of my cells through the water that's in my body, along with the plant life, because I only eat plants. Those minerals are saved in each cell, and when I die, each one of those cells grows out through every stage, and then becomes different people. And we're all doing that right now with our large body. So it's a step up from us, but that's not even the biggest. You know, like when we die, there's nothing. The planets aren't there. They have to be here, right? They're not. It's so hard to try to separate the metaphysical and or just the spiritual world and the physical world, because we have to give them ideas and merge them together. Because right now we're the cross too. We are on the green world between the yellow sun and the blue water. It's literally the green right in the center of it all.
So hopefully we're heart-based and how we walk on this land, this green land.
Yeah, the green, that's the frequency. That's in the middle of the color spectrum. I wanted to mention that earlier, which is why they chose money and that kind of stuff, and green language, right? And green heart chakra, that good stuff. But yeah.
I mean, we're all living from our hearts. It's unfortunate that so many people have broken hearts. We live in a broken-hearted world. Broken-hearted.
And you know, the more that hearts are broken, then the more disconnected people are from the heart resonance, I think, you know, the purity. So all the more reason to create pain and destruction and hurt people and have more people hurting people.
Yeah, they spend their whole life trying to heal, but the way they heal is by seeing other people get hurt or seeing other people deal with bad stuff. To be like, good, I'm not the only one having a bad time. I'm not the only one miserable. More people seem to be happy with that than to actually see another person doing well. When I see a person doing well, I'm happy about it. I love seeing kids play because they're innocent. But when I love seeing adults happy, but I don't like seeing adults happy when they're doing something immoral. That's the big difference. Like if somebody's like, partying up, getting wasted, look at them chicks, man, let's score. that totally takes me into a weird place where I'm like, I've got a lot of work to do. You know, and we've all got so much work to do. And people are like, there's nothing to do out there. The world is so boring. I'm like, if we started doing the right things, we've got nothing but work to do. That's what I'm ready to start on. I don't want to, I love the fact that we can communicate this way on our phones, but I want so bad to get my community together. And every day I reach out and I just see people that their answer is, nobody's going to do that. And I go, will you? Will you help me? Do you go anywhere where I can go talk in front of people and gather people together? And they're like, people don't do that. It's like everyone's just so quick to dismiss anything.
Yeah. What do you see as the strategies or answers to help people, you know, or for people to take on, you know, to overcome the evil, right, that's sabotaging our world?
I think first it would be understanding that you really don't die. Like your body will die, but if you really get the fact that you don't die and you'll get this chance again, but you'll take what you've learned with you. I think if people can grasp that enough, they'll want to become better, and as they slowly purify or cleanse themselves, their minds and their bodies, they'll see the wrongs in others and reach out more. Until a greater amount of people do that, we're stuck in a spot where I wish I had ideas of how to do it. I have ideas of how it can help, but the free will of other people is really a roadblock that we all face. Like I can't stand when people say stuff like, we have no free will. There's no such thing as free will. But then I go, well, then go to my channel and watch every single one of them. And they go, I don't want to, or I ain't got the time for that. Like some of those excuses, whatever they come up with. If you don't want to do something and you choose not to, is that not free will? Well, that's not what science calls it. People are they're too stuck in the definitions and the meanings that other people gave them, and unfortunately, a lot of those are wrong.
So part of the way out is to erase the negative knowledge, right? Like to release, let go of that which you've been taught and programmed by, and come back maybe to a place of nature and openness to the magic that's present in the universe, right, all the time, right? And we overlook.
Yeah, nature neutral, right? That neutral point to bounce to the
green.
Right?
It's that whole having to destroy before we rebuild. But right now, the destroying we have to do doesn't necessarily have to be physical destruction. It's just if enough of us don't get our act together, coming up and having small groups of people that want to make differences, they become threats and they get neutralized before they ever get a chance to do anything. That's why I don't go into really deep stuff and name names, because as soon as I did that and I started getting death threats, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I can't help anybody if I'm dead, at least not this lifetime. And I sort of like the fact that when I wake up or when I open my eyes for meditation tomorrow, I'm not going to say it was all a dream and this isn't real. Like that Dan Alexander that I used to be is never going to just immediately pop back into here and be like, yeah, man, let's go party. That's gone. And it's like, I don't have any wants anymore. Like, I don't expect anyone else to be that way and give up everything. Like, I didn't have to try. That whole non-attachment, I don't have that. I couldn't date anybody just because I love everybody evenly. And that some people may see that as in, well, that sucks, man. You're going to miss out on a lot. But I'm like, I'm so in love with the world I am. Believe me, it's like a relationship when you're angry at the person you love and then you're so happy with the person you love. That happens with me in the world every day. It happens with all of us in the world every day. Except a lot of us have it to either pour it out on or to help relieve us from it. I don't need that anymore. I don't know. I think the biggest problem people have is their addiction to food. Thinking that we need to eat 3 times a day and you got to count your macros and micros. Like, I talk to my food. I feel it out. And I only eat once a day. And then I'll fast for like a week or two. But when I first did it, I fasted for 4 months. I didn't eat anything. I didn't gain a pound. I didn't lose a pound. I literally was seeing myself as a plant, sucking in sunlight and drinking water. And that was all I had to do. Then I got so high mentally, I couldn't be around people because it hurt. I couldn't be around them. So I was like, well, I need to dumb myself back down a little bit. And once in a while, treat myself. My idea of treating myself is some natural peanut butter on a cracker. Vegan cracker, may I add. And to me, that's like treating myself. And I'm like, I didn't need that. Why'd I do that? Oh, my God. I ate peanut butter on a cracker. I sinned. No, I'm just joking. But it's like, I don't know how to put into words. Like, I don't expect other people to magically not need anything, not want anything. All I want is to help people.
You know, I do think, though, that scaling back our possessions and our food intake and the stimulation and the technology, right? Like fasting from all of this bombardment of unnecessary stuff, you know, and is helpful. I do think that's good advice. You know, there was I was listening to Mark Passio's One True Media, and he, in the beginning stages, he was talking about setting up your environment. And he quoted like Benjamin Franklin, something like, for everything there is a place. And the idea was to only like have what you need, like a minute, you know, like the idea is that we don't need that much really, but what we do have, to like value it and to know where it is, like to know what you have and where it is. Like even just that concept to me was like, oh my gosh, like I'm kind of far from that. I have drawers full of crap and closets to clean out, you know, and that's like a metaphor. And I felt like this is actually an important concept to expand on, that we are so busy accumulating stuff, and we live in like chaotic messes much of the time. The world is kind of like that, especially cities, right? And it's the opposite of what we really need to find a clear consciousness and purity of thought, I think. So I think we can work on just simplifying in every way to really find out, what do we need, you know, and then we can decide with those little special treats, you know, that add pleasure and soul food, you know, and I'm all for that. You know, I think that we're human, we're alive on this beautiful earth, that we should enjoy like some of the beauty of it in different ways, but yet we don't need to be hoarding or like constantly consuming. It totally will clutter our minds and our perspective, our ability to see these like magical things, you know, that are simply like almost like joys of the word. You know, as I'm watching you like talk about words, there's an enjoyment to it. There's like an energy, a lightness, a fun, and I think like we don't need much to enjoy the universe. Everything's right here, right?
Yeah, we've just been too distracted by what we like to do as hobbies, and our hobbies take us over. Sometimes our hobbies are destructive. A lot of times.
Well, they're distractors, and I wanted to bring up this too, that I think a lot of this behavior and the avoidance is about trauma, and unhealed wounds that haven't been processed and faced. And so we constantly are shoving things under, or we're distracting. And all that is just noise in the system that just, makes it harder to know the truth.
All that static. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you said sit, like literally how I was saying earlier with like the real power in the world is currency. Is the human body, is human action is the currency of the world. And I don't know if you guys know this, but the word cities in like Hindu and some of those other languages literally means your inner power. Sidhi.
Yeah, the cities. Yeah.
Sadhana is when you connect with that, when you activate that power. But literally, the word city, constant to itself, identified plus vital identity, it means a place with a lot of power. Like this isn't just a play on words. It's literally, people know that if they get a bunch of people in a big city, that they're going to interact with each other so much it keeps them distracted, and they can control them from afar. That's why they want to gather everybody in big cities now. When I say they, we know who they.
It's like making a power source of some sort, to feed energy, right? Send energy.
You round it up if you wanted to do something to them.
Right. So what is your take on like this word insight or magic with other languages? Do you have any insights into other languages, if they work similarly, or is this something unique to English?
They all translate quite interestingly. Like I have a video that I've been working on that's what's it called? The evolution of the alphabet. And it has all the original signs. Like the original A was, instead of being shaped like that, was shaped like a straight line with two lines coming down like that. Like it just fun. Just like it's as weird as this may look. A is this, and once you get into tense, K is this, and once you get into twins, U is this. Because you went on the bottom line of a three-line graph, the middle line of a three-line graph, and then you got the top line of a three-line graph. And you get to the top line of a three-line graph like this, because you start at the bottom like that. K is literally the center line going, and this goes with 369. I could show, I have a video that goes really deep into that with 30, 60, 90, and just how I and J, that we have the dot I and the dot J. But then we have that top and bottom I, top hook J, because J is the identity, because it's coming into tense. That same thing happens from 30, 60, 90 on a larger scale, but from 90 to 10 is that there's a tense that is missing. It's more like coming from being identity to coming from being what's out in tense. Like it's 100%. That's why your grades in that, and you get an A by having 90 or above. So it's like, it sounds like I'm playing on words. I'm just trying to say it in the easiest way for everybody. Like I really feel like my biggest obstacle is to constantly try to make things easily understandable, instead of being one of those people that says all these huge words and people go, I have no clue what they're talking about. There's too many people who are very educated, but they really don't make any sense when you hear them, because they could have said that same message a lot easier. A lot of people, not all of them.
It's awesome word salads, right?
I think some people just try too hard to sound overeducated, and it really makes them seem uneducated. I've learned all these big words, don't know what they mean, but I use them.
Or you can feel a little, what would be the word? Like, you're smarter because you know these words, and you can feel, like, I don't know, some people like that, feeling good about themselves.
That way. I don't think anything higher of myself. I know something higher about all of us. And all I want is to bring awaken that in people. Not me, it's there. I'm there. And I feel bad for saying that, because I'll never need anything else ever again. And I don't feel that there's ever going to be anything I need except for cooperation to help other people. That's it.
Yeah.
And I can't find a place to book in my local area. Coming up in March, I'm supposed to go to North Carolina and do a talk with a bunch of people. I'm excited about that for the first time ever. I've never had that ever. I used to be a lead singer of bands, and I used to be on stage all the time in front of people who chanted my name and loved me. And I just ripped comedy jokes all the time. I did stand up for a while too. And it's like when that was me, everybody wanted to hear it. But then when I'm like, hey, I want to help people. Yeah. That's the sad part.
Typical.
I know. Yeah.
But I hope not to dwell on that too much because I'm trying to keep myself in the most positive outlook that I can. But we also have to be realistic here.
Yeah. And creative, right? And do you take these creative talents and find ways to integrate these teachings, through those forms? I think, comedy music.
Yeah, people like you guys give me hope. Like there's really a hope that there are people that are coming around. And you guys have not just been coming around. You've been obviously in the know for a while. It's like it does make me. It gives me that little bit of extra oomph, knowing that things can change in this lifetime. It may be 100 or 200 years from now before we see people treating each other the way they should, but things have time has definitely sped up to the point where we could see it in our lifetime. I don't want to rule that out. Like I want to believe that things I want to know, but I don't yet. So I want to believe by provoking God that things can change by the time I leave this earth this time.
Yeah.
It's like in my one song Earth game, like this guy Dan, the energy that's in me, it won't come back to this one because we can do another one and be better. There are better ones. I talked about a lot of those in some of my original channel, the Dan Alexander Experience. I know that it sounds like a lot of emotion, but that's because I was being real. I was working a job 20 hours a day, holding my phone and being like, I saw this and I did this and I don't get to see my kids. And like, so I was battling back and forth between being tapped into this thing that was new to me in an everyday moment all the time, and dealing with the fact that how can these people do this to my kids when they've heard me say exactly what I mean? And if they looked at my history of the money that I paid and like the things that I did for my kids, they'd see that I'm being honest. They didn't care, and that totally like was the big slap in the face when I went to court and I saw them just say, "It's just a contrast in parenting." Like, and when I started like getting angry, and their threat was to do wrong to me because I'm angry that you're doing my kids wrong. I'm like, how can I be the bad guy here? But they flip it on you because you didn't go through the right steps. And as many times as I've gone through this thing with the court, people keep saying, take her back to court. I'm like, every time I go there, they like bite me in the ass again.
Yeah.
Can't do it that way. I've got to get other people who care enough about our children and our younger generation stand up for them now, like, because they won't have much of a chance pretty soon. They're all learning and taking in their demons right now. And like I've said before, demons are literally negative demonstrations or demands that we either put on ourselves or others put on us. That's what the demons are. And it means to take away or instruct the one, because D is literally the director. D is like the D-pad on a controller. D and T are both D from the top pressure of your mouth. That's why it's come forth into the light. D. D is the unseen context, and D literally closes the door. Good. Your tongue comes up. And T is more pressurized from the top of your mouth. So it may
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's literally, it comes forth into the light. Let there be light. So
Fun. It's kind of fun. And you could go on and it'd be interesting to keep hearing. I find it interesting to hear all of these variations about language.
Yeah, it goes on and on and on. And I do have lots and lots more to put out. I have, I don't know, hundreds of just recordings, but then I have that on my phone, but then I have thousands on my computer that I need to sit there and at least put a still picture too, because our world needs some kind of captivation in order for them to pay attention. And I can't just put a still shot up there and break down words and letters for people because it's always the same and it seems boring after a while. Like, we got to care about each other. Screw you with that care about each other stuff. I'm done hearing that.
Yeah, yawn. So Dan, where do people find your work? Where do people find out more? They're curious about these words and so forth.
Dan Alexander, The Living Word, or you could put in Dan Alexander 186. That happens to be the name of the channel. And then the other one is the Dan Alexander Experience, all in one word. And
on YouTube or what platforms?
On YouTube. I'm starting to get stuff loaded on to like BitChute and Rumble. But like I said before, I don't have really much of an internet connection. I have to use the Wi-Fi when I'm around it. And I just have so much stuff to put out. I don't want to spend too much of my time reposting stuff that I've already posted in one spot. I already have it all. So I might do one of those kind of send me a thing and I'll upload everything that I have onto other people's stuff. But I do it for free. I don't want anything. I can live without.
Yeah, yeah. So please, everyone, check out Dan's stuff on YouTube. And the music, I really enjoy. I feel like you have a lot of talent there, for sure.
I've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
I was 9 when I wrote my first song, so 34 years I've been doing music.
34?
Yeah, 34. I'm 43, supposedly.
Wow, man.
That's
Really impressive, man.
DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince did Rock the House. That was like that and Run DMC Tougher Than Leather. And then some of the old stuff. That was like my first couple tapes. When I say tapes, that dates me, I guess.
Oh my gosh, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I had 8 tracks too when I was little, but I don't like
Smokes.
Yeah. So any final message or word around any final word?
I just asked a final question before you.
Okay. Yeah.
Your final word, brother. And I'm kind of curious as to what would be like top 3, top 5 more important words that really stick out in the forefront of your mind, like, especially after you've been going over this whole series and with the living word and going through the whole alphabet and all that stuff. I'm sure there's some power letters in there. Every letter has their magic to them, but as far as like words go, what kind of really is out there for you, I guess?
I mean, and by saying the 5 most popular or 3 most meaningful words, I'd say would be love, truth. I mean, honesty is along with truth. I would say love, truth, and just openness. Be open. Be open to we can't take anything in and learn if we're already full. So I think being open is actually more important than those things, because if you already love what you love, love ain't going to do nothing because you're not open to anything new. So I would think openness, then love, and then truth. I mean, they all should be hand in hand. So those would be the 3 words that I think are the most important, especially if you be honest, whether it hurts people or not. It's going to hurt them more if you lie to them, and then they find out later. Either they're going to find out later and feel betrayed, or you're going to tell them something that's wrong, and they're going to get messed up or hurt because of it. I don't ever want to be at fault for that for anybody. Like, I feel like there's a part of me sometimes when I go to these deep spaces and I feel the dark part of it, where I really feel like everything that's ever gone wrong is my fault. Like there's times where I can't separate that from my reality. Like, it's my fault. I remember doing this. It sounds weird to people, but I can't shake that because it's there, and that really hangs over me like a cloud sometimes. But I do my best with being honest and loving with people, and open. So, honest, loving. Let me think. Open, honest, and love. So, put it that way.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm really glad we got you on the show, Dan.
Me too. It's been since March of last year or May of last year we were talking about it.
Yeah.
Moving and shaking and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad to see. A few people have mentioned your name as really being inspired by your work. So I was really happy to hear that recently. Yeah.
Me too. I felt like for this going on the 6th year, I felt like, well, this is hopeless. Nobody really wants to hear this because I know how far-fetched it may sound. Most people.
You have a very heart-centered sincerity, and it's palpable.
Yeah, I'm definitely not putting on an act. Like, this is me. As soon as this camera goes off, like, this is the same guy. I'm just going to go out in my hut and sort of dissolve into life. As weird as that may sound, there's too many, gurus and stuff that talk about being one with the light. And it doesn't just mean it's all love and fun. Sometimes it's scary. And I take that too. Like, take that. I'm not afraid of it, You got to not be.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Dan.
And anytime you want, By doing it.
All righty. Yeah, look forward to seeing you the next time.
Yeah.
I hope we know the person someday, honestly.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah, that's a goal that I have as well, to meet people in person and to continue to increase the networking and the gathering and the real human level connection.
Hey,
Yeah.
you have, I volunteer to do the music.
All right.
And the
What
speech.
what are you in Ohio? What state are you?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Okay, cool.
It was written in my blood. Pennsylvania. It's too
Yeah.
funny.
I grew up in New York, right above you. I'm not in New York City, but mid.
Oh, yeah. So where you at? You're out in California now.
California now, Northern California. Yeah.
And someday, Derek, are you planning on returning, or are you going to stay there? Or?
Yeah, I'll come back. I got a new lady friend and all that. But
In France.
yeah.
Oui, oui.
Ah oui, tous les jours.
I hope you both enjoy yourselves at every step along the way.
Thank you, God. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for watching Dissolving the Divide.
See you next time.
Yeah. Ciao.
There's so much to do, so hurry or else time is gonna catch up with you. Just see it flying by, there's so much to do, so hurry or else time is gonna catch up with you. And everybody wants to feel alive. Everybody wants to feel alive. Everybody wants to feel alive. Everybody wants to feel alive.